Thank you, Mr. Panjyar. Thank you, Harry, Mr. Shahi, Mr. Deepak Gupta, Mr. Pramod Dev, for the exceedingly valuable suggestions which they have made. I'm most grateful that the Honorable Chief Minister, who has now achieved the status of an iconic development figure, globally speaking, and supported by an exceedingly energetic energy minister with more than 20 years of experience in dealing with the power sector, has helped in the organization of this first conference to enhance the awareness and the threshold on what needs to be done to power Bihar further. Harry, I have attended your first conference, if you recall, and I couldn't attend your recent annual Goa retreat. I'm sorry for that. Just as well, because I'm here to attend the conference in Patna and to extract a promise from you that this should become an annual event, and Harry, you must support this initiative. This is because the focus of Independent Power Producers Organization, which I helped in the initial formation stage, must focus on states which have yet a long way to go in achieving anywhere near energy self-sufficiency. So I encourage you to think along the lines of making this an annual event. What needs to be done in the case of the power sector are obvious. I needn't repeat what has been said. The fact that we are 1/7 of national average, the fact that 30,000 villages still need to be electrified, the fact that of endemic power shortage will be a debilitating impact in attracting private investment, in fostering economic activity, in enabling the state to sustain a 16% rate of growth, crippled by energy deficiency. These are facts which are in public domain and need not be repeated. So what is the forward path? A lot of what is the forward path has been articulated exceedingly well by Mr. Shahi, in the presentation made by Mr. Harry Dhal, and I think in the kind of action program which Mr. Panjyar has articulated. As I can see that Bihar is to some extent a microcosm of macrocosm issues. India as a whole has yet to achieve global respectability when it comes to the management of power. I was bringing to the Honorable Chief Minister's notice the London Economist, which came to me day for yesterday. The cover story of the London Economist is on India. It says it has a photograph of an elephant and 4 people pushing the elephant and says, one more push. One more push is needed so that India is taken away from this plateau in which it might settle growth rates of around just 7% to the next growth rate trajectory of 10%. And it says 3 things are necessary, according to that article. It says that post-1991, we may have freed up the consumers, namely consumer option, licensing, industry, trade. But factors of production still are crippled by excessive state regulation. These factors of production, which they mentioned, first of all, India hasn't got a credible policy on land use, and what should be done to free up people from agriculture. It doesn't have a credible policy on labor, and it doesn't have a credible policy, the third important thing, on power. That is why I think this conference today is central not only to Bihar's growth, but I think to India's overall economic development to a new threshold. Now, as far as the state of Bihar is concerned, I believe that I would recommend 10 templates of change. First and foremost, the policies, skewed policies of the central government on fuel linkage, on coal, on a discriminatory principle in which gas has been allocated, on a discriminatory basis on which old agreements were signed. So the first thing I would recommend is that, Harry, I think we should put our energy in suggesting a special meeting of the National Development Council, which shouldn't concern itself only to the micro issue of allocation of financial resources, but should look at the broader issue of how natural resources, which are sovereign resources, which belong to the country, can be distributed equitably in a non-discriminatory manner to all states for enabling them to achieve minimum thresholds of energy security. And I think this is a national objective which goes beyond the mere confines of Bihar. And this special meeting of the National Development Council should concentrate on three things: equitable distribution of coal and inputs, that states which are lagging behind the national average on power utility, a special allocation for gas-based power station in the gas which is coming into stream, and to revise the old skewed up discriminatory formula on allocation of unallocated power, and to review the agreements which have been entered into. In my view, in the 10 templates, this is the first important thing. The second thing is, I would say that the Bihar State Electricity Board, of which I had the privilege for some time of being the chairman, still happens to be in a position which requires to be salvaged from growing financial insolvency. What can be done to reduce the monthly gap of the Bihar State Electricity Board in terms of issues of solvency? The most obvious thing is to implement the Electricity Act of 2003, some of the features of which have been articulated by other speakers, including tariff fixation, sunset clause, freeing up open access, and some of those things. So that's the second thing. The third is that the transmission and distribution losses, which are difficult to measure, still hover around 35 to 38% annually. In fact, in the last 10 years, the reduction in the T&D losses as far as Bihar is concerned has made a minuscule change from just 43% measure to just about 38, 39%. I would suggest that the State Electricity Board should accept an annual target of a 3% reduction in T&D losses for the next 5 years. This is a challenging exercise, but I think it's a doable exercise. The fourth important thing that I think needs to be done is, startling as it might seem, 11 lakh consumers are still unmetered. 40% of 33 kVA and 11 kVA lines are unmetered. Distribution transformers do not have metering. Mr. Shahi will recall that one of the important things with the task force was that several years ago we suggested that this was a critical, important ingredient and a catalytic ingredient of any reform to have compulsory metering. Large sums of money are available under the accelerated power development thing for metering all these unmetered lines, and I think that we need to have a time-bound program to do so. Fifth, I think that this point has been made that the Bihar State Electricity Board has still a vertical monolithic entity. And if full unbundling is going to take time, then I think that certainly creating firewalls in which financial and administrative autonomy can be given to the three ingredients of generation, transmission and distribution is something which deserves priority attention. We also need to have better principles of accounting which will create this kind of a firewall. Sixth, I would say, Mr. Pandya, your appointment is an important testimony that Bihar at least did not believe in a regulatory catch. Your appointment is designed to instill confidence that Bihar believes in the independence of regulators to take decisions which they consider. And that is why I believe that you must proceed with the suggestion made about what you have already begun, a multi-year tariff, having an automatic fuel surcharge, and a sunset clause which is necessary, in which the cross-subsidy is really borne by the state. The state must withdraw the monthly subsidy which it is giving to the State Electricity Board. Instead, since the Principal Finance Secretary is here, you should insist that what they need to do is implement the Electricity Act, namely have a sunset clause in terms of this cross-subsidy. And wherever the state wants the subsidy to be given, that is the budgetary support which under the National Electricity Act of 2003, the board should be entitled to. Seventh, and this point has been covered, better demand management in terms of having independent load dispatch centers, in terms of having star-rated efficiency programs, in terms of the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, laying down a program which will cut down the energy intensity of economic activity. Technology offers us the scope of moving towards smart grid. And there is no reason why, based on the Bureau of Energy's recommendations, the State Electricity Board shouldn't adopt a program of a smart grid which will be able to optimize efficiency. Eighth, I think that the issue of franchising in important cities has long been delayed. The Planning Commission was coming up with a model. I do not know what they have done in the last 6 months, but it seems to be caught up. I'm sure that requires vigorous attention. Ninth, I think that the issue of renewable energy, and I entirely agree with Deepa, that technology has caught up and changed the paradigm. Part of the reason, Deepa, why you require a subsidy at all is because you are subsidizing fossil fuel. If you were to charge fossil fuel as mark to market, then the cost of renewable fuel and the subsidy for renewable fuel will dramatically come down. This is a national issue, but I think that the program which you have articulated on renewable energy needs to be fully strengthened. And I think, last but not the least, I think India needs to look to the broader issue of a more equal arrangement in terms of carbon footprint. The 12th five-year plan intends to be a sustainable development plan in terms of reducing the carbon footprint. And therefore, I think that I do believe that in some manner, since the carbon footprint of Bihar is much less than the carbon footprint of India, we need to encourage them to proceed along the lines. I thought I'll bring some of these suggestions to your notice. Thank you very much.